You're watching Spectrum News 1. It's 12 o'clock.
With the election about a month and a half away, preparations are underway in North Carolina for another presidential visit. Find out where President Donald Trump will visit next and the moves his opponent will be making as well. Healthcare workers work around the clock to fight the pandemic. Coming up, we'll sit down with an expert who goes face to face with those on ventilators, and we'll take a look at how respiratory therapists are trying to navigate coronavirus.
And so they kind of cut in front of my grandmother, and my grandmother went to tell the cashier, I was I was in line next, and the cashier kind of shrugged and said, "Ma'am, you have to get back to the end of the line."
In today's Voices for Change, find out how a Charlotte woman uses her experiences to help others. She shares her journey and the adversity she says she's faced head on. Thanks for joining us on Spectrum News 1. It is Friday afternoon. I'm Claudine Chalfant. Before we get those top stories, let's see how your weekend is shaping up and your weather on the One's forecast.
Hello, I'm meteorologist Scott Dean. Hope your Friday afternoon is going well, as we've had a lot of clouds around the area, but for the most part, the rain is over with as it's pushing on towards the east. Let's go ahead and take a look at the numbers for today. We averaged near 80 degrees, but it looks like we're going to be a little bit below that, and certainly several degrees below that as we head into the weekend. In fact, we're going to be closer to that 65 low we saw this morning for afternoon highs over the next few days. So a taste of autumn in the air as we go into the weekend, as we're going to see those skies brighten up, and it looks like an extended dry period through the next several days all the way into next week. So there's the last remnants of Sally. Also, we have a cold front coming in from the north and west. And you can see how the rain has been pushing eastward. A lot of low clouds across the area. Some areas have seen a few peaks of sunshine. And it is possible some areas could pick up a little bit of sunshine, but overall, many areas mostly cloudy as we go into the afternoon, as those clouds will hang around this evening. But the rain is over with. We'll have more details coming up in 10 minutes.
North Carolina prepares for another presidential visit in recent weeks. President Donald Trump is set to hold a campaign event at the Fayetteville Regional Airport. It will happen tomorrow night at 6. In the president's most recent stops in North Carolina, they include Mills River near Asheville, also in Wilmington and Winston-Salem. We will bring you updates right here on Spectrum News 1 before, during, and after the event. Well, Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden is also rallying some support. He participated in a drive-in town hall event last night at a minor league baseball stadium in Pennsylvania. He vowed to enforce facial requirements on federal property and in federal buildings, and said he would ask governors to create mask mandates at the state level as well, but can't force them to do so. In response to a question about masks infringing upon personal freedoms, Biden responded the protective measure is actually one of the few things preserving those freedoms right now. Biden also said he would not consider a requirement for public school students to get a COVID-19 vaccine unless there is proof that it is entirely safe. Also happening today, Democratic Vice Presidential nominee Kamala Harris participates in an event to get more people to vote. Harris is launching the Turn Up and Turn Out the Vote virtual bus tour. The event will be hosted in Durham, but you can attend from anywhere. If you're interested, it is happening from 5:45 until 6:15. The State Department of Health and Human Services now confirmed more than 1,400 new COVID-19 cases today. Our state surpassed 191,000 cases. Also, hospitalizations are slightly higher than yesterday's report. Now reported 904 people are in the hospital to be treated for COVID-19. As of about an hour ago, DHHS also lists about 3,200 deaths across North Carolina. Just fewer than 26,000 completed tests were reported today. More than 2.7 million tests have now been completed since March. Elementary schools across North Carolina could have students back in classes in a little more than 2 weeks. Governor Roy Cooper announced yesterday students can go back as soon as October 5th for in-person learning, but the decision will ultimately be made by the school districts. While Plan A does not require schools to limit the number of students in classrooms, it does require facial coverings. Cooper says the focus continues to be on carefully getting more students back into the classrooms.
This pandemic has been our schools, and our continuing progress in fighting the spread of this virus is allowing us to do a little more. The more people wear masks and act responsibly, the more we slow the spread of the virus, and the more children we can get safely in our schools.
Middle and high schools must still remain a hybrid of in-person and remote learning right now. Well, the pandemic has highlighted the importance of a lot of jobs, but one profession in particular has been pushed into the spotlight. Spectrum News 1 reporter Jivan Patel has more on respiratory therapists and their life-saving work and the growing demand within their profession.
It was a family emergency that forever altered Robert Wolf's life.
My grandfather ended up in the hospital. And while he was in the hospital, I went to visit him. A respiratory therapist came in, and I just started talking with him. And I thought, oh, this is really cool.
Wolf is a respiratory therapist. After 20 years on the job, Wolf says these days are proving to be busier.
There's always extra steps now that we didn't used to think about. But since COVID, right, you have to think about protecting yourself, everybody else in the room.
Ever since the coronavirus became a worldwide pandemic, more attention is being placed on often overlooked medical fields like respiratory therapy.
We're getting a lot of attention as a profession now.
Tom Kallstrom is the executive director of the American Association for Respiratory Care. He says respiratory therapists typically treat patients with breathing-related health conditions like bronchitis or pneumonia. This year, he says, therapists are critical when it comes to fighting for lives affected by the virus.
The respiratory therapist oftentimes is a person that sticks the tube, it's called intubation, into the lungs. We then make sure the airway is secure. We then put them on a mechanical ventilator with the plan of hopefully that they're going to be extubated or the tube will be pulled out.
Wolf says seeing patients breathing on their own is the best part of his job.
To pull that tube out and have them say hi to their family, that's probably the most rewarding.
Most respiratory therapy jobs require at least a 2-year associate's degree. Kallstrom says those with a bachelor's degree are more likely to be hired for leadership positions. He also believes the demand for therapists will continue to grow well after the pandemic is over.
As we look to the future, we need more therapists.
Reporting in Washington, Jivan Patel, Spectrum News.
Jessica Gibson has made it her mission to help one of our state's most vulnerable populations. In today's Voices for Change, the Charlotte nonprofit founder walks us through what led her to giving back to others and the adversity she says she's overcome along the way.
The moment that I decided that I wanted to become a voice for change was December 2017, when I went to the homeless shelter to volunteer. And as I was communicating with the different individuals and realized that they didn't have a lot of the things that they needed, and they had a lot of disappointment that was in their eyes. And so I asked God, how can I be an impact in the community? How can I make a difference? And he gave me 2 project assignments, and they were the Breaking Bread Project and the Day of Impact, which is 2 annual events that we have. And so Just Do It movement launched. We're now a nonprofit organization where we cater to the homeless community, where we provide essentials, needs such as clothing, shoes, food, any essentials that they may need, tents, tarps, provide financial literacy. We help them get a job, as well as supportive housing to help get them in housing. I have experienced racism, particularly when my grandmother and I was in a grocery store called Piggly Wiggly. And as we were in the store, she was kind of waiting in line, and she was the first one in line, but the line wasn't very structured. So there were several Caucasian ladies that were actually standing around in line as well. And so they kind of cut in front of my grandmother, and my grandmother went to tell the cashier, you know, I was in line next. And the cashier kind of shrugged and said, ma'am, you have to get back to the end of the line. And I was really trying to figure out what had actually happened there, because I knew we were there first. And then I started to ask questions. I was 6 years old, and I asked the question. My grandmother said, wait a second, let's wait till we get inside of the car. And And when we got in the car, I started to ask questions, and she said, well, just be mindful that, you know, sometimes we're not treated the same just because of the color of our skin. And so I still didn't really understood that. My grandmother, she didn't really make much of a fuss about it, because my grandmother, she doesn't like confrontation. She's a very humble lady. What gives me hope for the future is that I'm a part of that change. I can be the impact that the world want to see. I know people always hear the saying, be the change that you want to see. I get to be the change, get to be a part of the change that I want to see in the community in which I serve. And then the second piece of it is that in the Black African community, a lot of the millennials are becoming aware, becoming knowledgeable that racism is still very live and active. And also not only the Black community, but even in the Caucasian community and even other races, they're becoming knowledgeable that racism is still alive, and they're speaking on it, and they're bringing enlightenment to it. That's one of the things that brings me hope for the future.
We would love to have your voice in the conversation as well. So if you know someone who is a voice for change, tell us about them. Go to SpectrumLocalNews.com. Click on the Around tab at the top of the page. That's where you'll find a link for Voices for Change and the submission form for you to fill out. It is 12:11. It is Friday afternoon, everybody. Let's see how the next 3 days are shaping up weather-wise with your Weather on the Ones forecast.
Hello, meteorologist Scott Dean with your Weather on the Ones forecast. Hope your Friday afternoon is going well as we head into the weekend, the last full weekend of summer. It's hard to believe the summer is almost over as we're entering into the fall season. It's going to feel like fall out there as we go into the weekend. Lots of clouds, a gloomy into our work week. A few areas have seen some sunshine, but as far as the rain concerned, that's pretty much over with for the most part. Now, we're going to go with a very small chance for a shower this evening as the actual cold front comes through. But as you can see, it's going to be very, very small, and most of, not all areas will probably remain dry. The moisture continues to push on towards the east. The last areas of moisture from Sally moving on towards the coastal plain as the heavy showers and storms have pushed well off the coast, but still some low-level moisture out there that we're going to have to deal with. As we look at our Futurecast model, as we go through the evening into the overnight, temperatures dropping into the 60s. Northeast winds will drive in that drier air. Lows down into the 50s for our Saturday morning, and with filtered sunshine with some high clouds, we'll see temperatures in the 60s for highs, and then we clear out down into the 40s for lows on Sunday morning. So you're going to have to pull out that jacket as we head into the weekend. Going to the beaches, be aware it will be breezy with Hurricane Teddy well off the coast. Dangerous surf conditions, high rip current risk, and maybe some ocean overwash. So might want to stay out of the water if you're going to be going there, as temperatures will be in the 70s. As far as the mountains are concerned, look at this. Lows down into the upper 30s in the higher elevations on Sunday into Monday, with lots and lots of sunshine out there as we end out the weekend. Looking at our forecast, so we'll see mostly cloudy skies at times on Saturday, but I also think we'll see some sunshine filtering through those high clouds. Temperatures down into the 60s for highs. Look at this, all the way through Sunday and Monday at bright blue skies for Sunday into Monday, with lows down into the 40s by Sunday morning.
World hunger has been an ongoing health crisis for decades. Coming up, we'll go in depth with the North Carolina church, who has spent years helping feed people around the world. Also, we have a new way to keep you informed throughout the day, even when you're away from your television. It is the all-new Spectrum News app that features local stories, real-time weather alerts, and the ability to watch us live anywhere, anytime. Go to SpectrumNewsApp.com to learn more and download, or find it in your app store.